Well, hello, everyone. My name is Claudia Leo. I manage North Quad programming. We do live events, but considering the virus situation, we have moved our operations online. So this presentation today is in the context of our virtual Space 2435, which is usually our bigger event room. And today we wanted to talk about sexual assault awareness and domestic violence, especially in the context of the pandemic that's happening right now. And I would like to welcome the experts that we have joining us today for this talk from DPSS, from the Special Victims Unit. So Marlanna, I'll leave it up to you to take it from here.
Thanks. So again, welcome everyone, and thank you again for being here with us. And we're so excited to be with you here virtually. Thank you again, Claudia, for having us here and reaching out and requesting that we share our information with you. From DPSS, we have Police Officer Maureen Burke, who leads our efforts around our outreach efforts as the coordinator for that. Police Officer Margie Pillsbury, who leads investigations as the coordinator. And they come with great unique skills and experience, both separately, bringing 25 plus years of law enforcement experience and commitment to the topic of interpersonal violence. I'm Marlanna Landeros, and my job is leading our DPSS efforts and student program. I myself started out here as a student, and I've been with the department for 23 years in various capacities. I'm also an adjunct instructor at the School of Social Work. Before we get started, I just want to provide a trigger warning. Some of what's discussed today may be a trigger for some, and you're welcome to leave if that happens at any time. If you need to talk to anyone, please feel free to reach out to us anytime, and also including after this presentation specifically. We encourage individuals to take care of themselves in a way that's most meaningful to them, and which also includes university resources such as SAPAC, CAPS, FACEGO, etc. We have a limited amount of time together, so we want to make good use of it. We'll quickly highlight some information, use our remaining time together for Q&A. We hope this is just the start of the conversation and partnerships with DPSS. We also look forward to future programming and connections. So just some quick housekeeping before we get started. I'll monitor the chat for questions and share them towards the end and answer them. And each of us will present different parts of the presentation. So we ask that you all actively participate, listen. If there's anything you need clarification, please let us know. It is meant to be an overall dialogue once we present some of the things we have. We do have, as I mentioned before, some slides that highlight information, but we're here to actually answer your questions and support you. So now we'll get started. As noted on this slide, we just like to bring attention to our goal is that the goal is for individuals to recognize it, report it, and prevent it. So by recognizing what interpersonal violence is and encouraging reporting, we will be preventing further harm. Slide. So we want to make sure we just kind of give people a baseline of who DPSS is. So this is a quick overview of what makes DPSS who we are as a whole. So just to highlight a few, we have museum security, Michigan Medicine Security, the police department, emergency management, housing security, and all of these things also include Dearborn and Flint. Always and during COVID-19, we want to reiterate that we continue doing all our work in these respective areas. Some staff are redeployed, but we're still available 24/7. Slide, and I'll turn it over to Officer Burke.
Thank you. Thank you, Marlanna. Again, my name is Maureen Burke, and I'm an officer with the Special Victims Unit with the Division of Public Safety and Security. As some of you may know, we created a Special Victims Unit about 5 years ago, and our goal was to assist those that have experienced sexual assault, domestic violence, and stalking. We really created this unit to get away from traditional policing, because we understand that the trauma involved in these types of situations requires officers that are specially trained and connections with our advocacy and support around campus. So that really was our goal in creating this unit. And as you can see from this photo, we have police officers, security officers from our entire division, also dispatchers that are trained to work in our unit. So we're really trying hard to provide the best service to our faculty, staff, and students by creating this unit. Slide. The one thing I wanted to touch on, especially today, is this unprecedented time that we find ourselves in during COVID-19. We want to let everyone know that DPSS, like Marlanna mentioned, is still here and available 24/7, but also our Special Victims Unit is available. We have the ability to take phone calls, set up video chats. We can also find a discrete location on campus to meet with somebody if they just want to meet to discuss, maybe at home, they're not safe at home. If you want to arrange for a place on campus to meet to discuss what's going on, we're happy to make those arrangements. So at the bottom of this slide is our phone number for our dispatch center, which is 734-763-1131. And at the end of our presentation will be the email address for myself and Margie, specifically as it relates to Special Victims Unit. If you want to email us on the side, that's fine. We are welcome. We take hypotheticals. So if you want to ask for a friend or just give us an example of what's going on, we can help guide you on some options. But we do know that supporting people and believing people when they disclose a sexual assault, that is the first step to healing. So our main goal for this unit is to start by believing and get people on the path to healing.
Hi, everyone. I'm Margie Pillsbury, and I'm one of the detectives who's part of the Special Victims Unit. Thank you for taking time to join us today. And we're hoping, as Marlanna said, that this will be interactive, that we can answer your questions and just make our community more familiar with the services that we have to offer. We really appreciate Claudia reaching out to us and hosting this for Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And one of the goals in Sexual Assault Awareness Month is to really get the message out there that these types of crimes occur more than most of us realize. And we want to empower survivors to know what their options are for reporting to police or for connecting with confidential resources. We saw during the Me Too movement that kind of at the height of that on our campus, we received more reports than we've ever received. And I know SAPAC and the Office of Institutional Equity also received an increased number of reports. And coming back to Sexual Assault Awareness Month, the more we talk about this, the more survivors know that they're not alone, and the more survivors that come forward, the more it empowers others to speak up and to get help. So we really appreciate you having us here today. Maureen mentioned the Start by Believing. That's one of the campaigns that we think very highly of, and we brought to our campus a few years ago. It's a national campaign for public awareness. It is geared towards law enforcement, towards prosecutors, towards medical personnel, but also towards the general public. We know through research that one of the main reasons people don't talk about sexual assault or don't ever disclose what happened to them to anyone is the fear of not being believed. And this campaign, not only brings awareness to that, but it also helps people understand what is an appropriate response. And if someone ever comes to you, and I'm sure most of us in our lifetime will have this happen, and they disclose that they were sexually assaulted or that they're in an abusive relationship, one of the most powerful things we can say to that person is, I believe you. I'm sorry this happened to you, that it's not your fault. And when we respond that way and we educate our community to respond that way, more survivors are likely to be engaged with the resources on campus that are available there to help them. And I think long-term, the better their outcome will be as they engage those services. Our Special Victims Unit, as Maureen talked about, deals with any type of interpersonal violence crime, and that does include the sexual assaults, domestic violence, dating violence, stalking, child abuse, any type of crime where one person in a relationship is affecting someone else negatively, harming them or making them afraid. We're here to help. We work really closely with our community partners such as SAPAC and Safe House. We've built strong relationships with them, and we're willing to meet with survivors at their offices, or as Maureen mentioned, on video conferencing or phone calls. Survivors don't have to give us their name. They don't have to tell us anything they don't want to tell us, but sometimes just getting a survivor connected with us so that they can share some of their story and tell us what happened, we can help them understand what type of crime that is and or what their options are in going forward. When a survivor chooses to talk to us, whether by phone, in person, or over video, and they disclose that they were a victim of sexual assault, we're not ever going to force them to file a report. If they choose to file a report, we're not going to force them to move forward with prosecution. We really are trying to empower survivors to make their own decisions by providing information, support, and resources. One of the initiatives we created a few years ago after bringing the Start by Believing campaign to campus, we came up with a sexual assault commitment card, which is basically a list of promises that we make to our community, which is how we as a Special Victims Unit will respond to these crimes on our campus. And I'm just going to hit some of the highlights of the commitment card to you now, but we're going to provide a link at the end of the presentation if you want to look at it yourself. We promise to start by believing, as I mentioned. We promise to make ourselves available to meet with survivors at a place and time of their choosing, a discrete location if that's what they prefer. Sometimes people call 911 and the appropriate response is to have police come right out because there's a dangerous emergent situation. But when it's after the fact and people are safe and someone wants to call and possibly file a report, sometimes they don't want the police showing up to their residence hall or to their office that they work at on campus. And we will work with survivors to come up with a place and time that's convenient for them and that they feel most comfortable meeting at. One of the things that we've been able to do in partnership with SAPAC and DPSS is we've created trauma-informed, sensitive meeting spaces on North Campus, South Campus, and Central Campus. These are offices that are set up somewhat like a living room, and they're within DPS office space. But when a survivor comes to meet in those spaces are a lot more comfortable and more trauma sensitive than a standard police interview room would be. And so that's one of the things we've done. We work with survivors to connect them with medical resources. If a victim has been sexually assaulted, they have a right to have a sexual assault examination kit conducted within 5 days at no cost to them. There are 2 places on campus. One is the University Hospital. The other one is University Health Services, where a sexual assault evidence kit can be provided. If a survivor chooses to do that, they have a right to do it and there is no charge. I mentioned earlier, we connect all survivors with advocacy and support. Every report of interpersonal violence that comes to DPSS, that is one of the first things we do is make sure if they're not already engaged with SAPAC or CAPS or some other confidential support service, we provide that information and offer to connect them. If they're living off campus and they want to meet with SAPAC and they need a ride, we'll provide transportation. That's really important to us because we know that survivors that are connected with support do much better in the long term for their healing. We promise to treat all survivors with dignity, courtesy, and professionalism. That kind of goes without saying, but we say it because there have been times in history where law enforcement have not responded appropriately to these types of cases. And that is, as Maureen said, why we created the Special Victims Unit and what we're trying to move away from. We will accommodate requests. If a survivor has a preference to meet with a female or a male officer, we will do our best to honor that request. And sometimes survivors want to talk about something that happened to them. And again, this isn't in an acute situation, but something that maybe happened in the past. And they would feel more comfortable talking to an officer not in uniform. Whenever we can accommodate that, we work very hard to do that. We promise to treat survivors' reports with discretion. We do not ever release a survivor's name to the public. We don't release their information to anyone that's not appropriate, within legal authority to have that information. And an example that comes up frequently is students, when they're a victim of a crime, one of the barriers for their reporting is they frequently think that we're going to call their parents. And that's just not true. We will not do that. We promise to apply the medical amnesty law that exists in Michigan and most other states. And medical amnesty is meant for people who are victims of crimes or have other life-threatening things going on to be able to engage emergency services, connect with law enforcement without the fear of getting an alcohol ticket or a drug ticket. That's what medical amnesty is about, but it applies to sexual assault because sometimes sexual assault survivors are under the age of 21 and there was alcohol involved in their assault and their friends maybe were consuming alcohol and they're afraid if they come forward, not only are they going to get in trouble, but their friends are going to get in trouble. We promise that is not the case. If you're a victim of interpersonal violence and you reach out to us, we are not going to investigate alcohol or drugs or any other infraction. We're going to deal with the more serious matter, which is what happened to you. We promise to conduct thorough investigations without any bias. And that is across the board a consistent commitment we've made. And we promise to keep survivors informed through the process. I know sometimes survivors think that, well, I'm going to call and make a report and then what? I don't know what's going to happen next. But we promise to stay connected with the survivor through email, through phone, and make ourselves available to them to answer their questions and assist them through the entire process.
Marlanna, before we go to the next slide, I just wanted to mention a couple of things on that last slide. We also assist with safety planning. If somebody feels like they're in an unsafe situation, we can arrange to meet with somebody just to go over safety planning, whether the offenses are happening on or off campus. We're happy to meet with our staff or students or faculty to discuss safety planning options. We can assist anyone in getting a PPO. We have connections at the courthouse that we can get survivors connected with to help them with the PPO process. And the other thing I didn't mention earlier when I was discussing our availability during this time of COVID, we know that most students are no longer in Ann Arbor, and that's okay. You can reach out to us and we can connect you with resources wherever you are, around the country, around the world. We can assist you in getting some advocacy and resources no matter where you're at, if you're not here in Ann Arbor.
Thanks, Mo. We just want to reiterate, excuse me, that DEI is part of our core value to our division. So it's our business model. And it's inseparable to what our dedication to exceed expectations as a service unit here at the university. So the DPSS Special Victims Unit plays a key role in helping us actually carry out our strategic plan. In everything that we do, we value respecting differences, equitable practices, intentional inclusion, striving to create actually an environment where our community feels welcome and safe. So during times like this that we've mentioned, we want to reiterate COVID-19. We know that there's some populations that are affected more than others. We take this very seriously, and we want to make sure that we keep that at the forefront of our work and we plan accordingly. Slide. So one example of us and our DEI work is actually this workshop that we're doing and the discussion that we're having here, because we want to get the reach out. We want to make sure that we're communicating. We're putting it in the forefront to know that we at DPSS are committed to DEI. It comes in a variety of different ways. However, to make sure that we follow through with that commitment and educating those that we actually do serve through presentations and trainings, as I mentioned, like this, we're continuously looking for feedback from our community. So please just know that we participate in the feedback loop. It's not one directional. We may put information out. You can go to our webpage, you can use our app in a variety of ways, but we definitely take feedback. So this is a place for you to provide us with feedback to make sure we're addressing your needs, or how can we continue to exceed expectations when we do things like that. So we'll share at the end of our presentation ways to get engaged with DPSS and to provide some feedback. Specifically in these pictures, I want to point out, this is showcasing our partnerships. So one is during our annual Purple Run 5K, which the proceeds go to Safe House Center. That's the local shelter for survivors of sexual assault and domestic violence. This picture shows one of our police officers running the 5K with the executive director of Safe House Center. The second picture is Candace Dorsey, who handles our Empowerment Self-Defense program, which you'll hear a little bit about next. A former DPSS student employee intern and myself. The student was able to intern with us and do work within the division and became actually a trained empowerment and self-defense instructor by interning with us and working. My role in this work is to educate and to be a resource on the subject and move the needle, which is why I participate in these type of presentations in conjunction and partnership with the SVU unit. So we can get the word out so people know that we're here. And a lot of the things we are doing are through a lot of our DEI efforts. DPSS believes that everyone plays a role in contributing a safe and secure environment. Our ability to achieve this mission, vision, and values is dependent on the relationships that we make with our community and partnerships that we build to actually make sure that we're participating in that with the diverse and vibrant community that we have on this campus. Our dedication to creating an environment where our community feels welcome and safe is inseparable, as I mentioned before, to our commitments to diversity, equity, and inclusion. So this is one of our, as I mentioned, one of several students pictured here who went on to have a successful career in law enforcement, and we take pride in that. So I'll now turn it back over to Officer Burke.
So this slide represents our Empowerment Self-Defense program. And when Claudia first reached out to us, this was the goal to host one of these programs before the virus, before COVID-19. So unfortunately, during this time where we're all working remotely, it's not possible to have one of Candace's programs, but we definitely wanted to touch base on what the program offers. And so in the picture there, you can see Candace working with staff and students on some physical moves for empowerment self-defense, but it's also verbal strategies as well. It's a holistic approach to personal safety. And what Candace is, her email's here at the bottom. Candace is the coordinator of that program, and what she has made available is programs you can host her at, say in your residence hall, and have a group of students participate in the program, sorority life, fraternities, athletic programs, faculty, staff. She's done programs all over campus. So we just wanted to let you know that she is available, and it is a great program. It's not all physical. It's just some techniques, how to get out of uncomfortable situations, and really emphasizing on the empowering piece to educate people on how to get out of uncomfortable situations. So her information is there, but again, you can reach out to Margie, Marlanna, and myself, and we can get you connected with Candace when things get back to normal on campus and we can actually host these types of things.
So that ends our formalized part of the presentation. Thanks again for staying engaged during that time where we presented a lot of different highlighted options to you. So now we'll move forward, as I mentioned, with the Q&A. We haven't had any questions specifically in the chat box. I did put that resource that we discussed earlier from that Officer Pillsbury mentioned, the resource card for our commitment. I do recommend that we covered a lot of information. It's probably a lot to digest just in this short amount of time. So we do ask that you take a look at our DPSS webpage. That's, you'll see it on the next slide, but it's dpss.umich.edu. Download our app. Make sure you put our phone number in your phone, which I'll cover in the next slide when we end it all. But stay engaged with us. Take a look at our webpage. That's where you're going to find a lot of information. That's where you're going to find contacts on things to get involved with and how to actually engage with us more. We're open, as I mentioned before, and willing to do what we need to do, because we can't do our job if we don't know what's needed in the community. So we depend on all of you to make sure you're communicating with us to let us know what do we need to do or how do we need to do it differently. And that's a big role that I play in, just to make sure that we have down certain areas down to a science, but how do we continue to build some of that? So we're open to any questions anyone has right now. If you don't, we can follow up.
Can we
I turn it back over to Claudia.
Sorry, Marlanna. Well, thank you for all the useful information. I actually have questions. I can't type at the moment, but is it okay to ask you questions live?
Sure.
Absolutely.
I was just curious overall to hear from your unit how being in quarantine has changed the game of keeping people safe. Are you finding that people are reaching out more because there are now more incidents happening in the homes? Or are you not hearing from people because people assume that that's just how it's going to be? They're locked down and they can't reach out to anyone because no one will come out to help them. I guess I'm wondering how the COVID situation has changed things for you guys.
Go ahead, Margie.
Yeah, I would say that for us on our campus, the largest parts of our population are no longer there. And our police department has jurisdiction on our campus. So overall, the number of reports have really gone down for us. And we're not getting a lot of extra reports. You know, there's a lot of concern about domestic violence when someone lives in the same home with their abuser and they're under a stay-at-home order. That's frightening, and that can raise some really scary situations. Because we know that we probably are still connected with or have some people on our campus that applies to, we've really worked hard to get messaging out that we are here, we're available. We work very closely with SafePack and Safe House, and we've had many consults with SafePack in the last 6 weeks where we're doing phone conferences or video chatting to try and safety plan for survivors who have those concerns. But overall, the outreach has been a lot less. We did see, especially right after the stay-at-home order started, a slight increase in people reaching out for information and assistance about reporting a sexual assault. And that was more, I think, my impression was people were busy with school, they had everything going on in campus, and now that they're under a stay-at-home order, they're having a little more time to think about stuff. And so a few people have reached out to us to just get information about what it would look like if they filed a report for sexual assault. And some have actually filed reports. So, you know, the impact specifically to our campus has been limited, and I think that's in large part because most people are off campus, but we are, you know, hearing of these incidents going on, and we're trying to make sure that we're letting people know if they go to our website, you can download the app, you can text DPS dispatch for assistance, you can call, you can email someone. Those are the means that we have for people to reach out, and we just want to make sure everyone knows about that in case they do need assistance.
And how is the department currently getting that information out to people so that they know that those resources are available? I would think that that's the hardest piece of it, is to actually be in people's faces with this information so that they know what their options are.
Yeah. Do one of you want to answer what our strategic communications has been doing? Or
Well, yeah, we do have a strategic communications team that's pushing social media out with information, but also doing messaging on the electronic message boards in the residence halls where we still do have students on campus, and just trying to get that information out. But it is hard to get it out. But even at platforms like this, hopefully somebody will click on it and maybe listen. And the one thing that I just wanted to mention again and reassure people, just because you reach out to the Special Victims Unit officer or to the police department does not automatically start a police report. You can reach out and just ask questions, and we can try to help navigate your options and what you want to do. Just because you call the police does not automatically start a police report. We are here as a resource, and that is really the information we want to share.
Yeah, that's good information to give out. Can people from the community in general contact your Special Victims Unit, or does it only have to be from the U of M campus? And if it's outside the campus, will they be rerouted to just the regular police department?
We are open to speaking with anybody that needs help, and we will get them connected with the appropriate resources. You know, for us to actually handle an investigation, the crime has to happen on campus, but certainly we've had people reach out from across the country asking questions to get resources. So I've connected an individual in Arizona with a Special Victims Unit out in Arizona. So we would not turn anyone away with assistance and information and advocacy, and just getting them in the right direction. So we certainly welcome anybody reaching out.
Okay. Yeah, I thought it would be good to mention in case there's people from the community at large watching.
Absolutely. And the Ann Arbor Police Department has started a Special Victims Unit, and we have a great working relationship with them. So if somebody's comfortable reaching out to us, we can make that soft connection with a Special Victims Unit officer at the Ann Arbor Police Department to help them if it happened in the city of Ann Arbor.
Okay, thank you. And also yet another question, sorry.
No, that's okay.
Are places like Safe House still fully open and functioning and admitting people in during the stay-at-home order, or are there restrictions? I know sometimes they do psychological sessions with people who are not admitted into Safe House, but they still attend sessions weekly. I don't know if those services are now restricted.
Margie,
Yeah, so the message from both Safe House and SAPAC is that all of their services are still available. They are providing some of those services in a different way, much like we are today. Some of their meetings with clients might be by video chat or by phone, depending on the client's preference. But the shelter at Safe House is still open. They are still assisting people with all of the things they've always assisted with: emergency housing, safety planning, applying for a PPO, counseling for families affected by domestic violence or sexual assault. They even have programs for kids, and they have lots of special programming, and all of that is still going on, but the way it's presented is a little bit different right now.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you. Does anyone else have any other questions? Or Marlanna, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I was just going to add, I think, to answer your original question, a lot of what we've seen also has been as people were transitioning with the thought that they have to go back home, meaning that going back home is not something that is, beneficial for them. So they know that that's a problem. And so they have been able to actually work with the SVU unit to kind of do some planning, as Officer Burke talked about before. So some safety planning, but that's been kind of falling into that mental health packet that people are actually afraid of returning home and what that means due to some topics like this. So I just wanted to add that's kind of been a lot more of the student aspect of it that's had to actually address all that, but we have seen it some.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions? Doesn't look like any other questions came in writing, correct, Marlanna?
Correct. I did not see anything additional. As we always say, it's a lot to cover in a short amount of time, and it leaves a lot of questions that'll probably pop up at a later day or when you have more incident that comes to you where you think, kind of like Officer Pillsbury, where you have more time to think about it, then you go, I think I have a follow-up question to that. But the point we want to drive home that's been continuously mentioned is please just reach out to us. We also push the part that you don't need to do the work to figure out how. Let us do the how. So if you reach out to any of us under any conditions, our job, whether you call 911, whether you call our main dispatch number, whether you text something through the app, any of those ways, the point is just contact us. Let us do the work to figure out how do we get what you need, who do we connect you with. We always want to push that because we don't want you to do the heavy lifting to figure out, did I call the right person? I'd hate to ask, Officer Burke this, I'd hate to ask Officer Pillsbury that. Just do it and let us figure out the rest.
And I think that's a really great point to make, because I think victims often find themselves already feeling overwhelmed by the situation of what they're living through. And, to expect that they would then have to navigate like a whole other part of a new system that they know nothing about. So I think it's really good to clarify that that burden would be on you, so to speak, and it's part of how you would help them. And I see now here there's a slide with all the contact information, which is really great. We will push this out at our own social media as well. I've personally learned about the app. I didn't know about the app. I think this is great. Often, especially in domestic violence situations, I feel that victims are probably not able to call or make noise or have an open conversation. But if there's an app where you can text in, or I think that's a great resource, and I didn't know about it, so I'm sure there are others who don't as well.
I think that's another example also of how we push out communication. So the more we can get people to engage with us via the app, social media, things like that, the more people we get to engage with us like that, the more information we can push out. So we do web articles, we do social media posts. So if people are following us and they have the app, they also can fully engage with us where the information does come to you as the end user.
Mm-hmm. And just not to make the situation scary, but to make things clear, are there any services currently that are not available to victims because of the pandemic? So things are just delivered in like a different format or whatnot, but nothing has really gone away, which is what I think people think or fear.
Right.
Yeah, Margie?
So just to reiterate what I said earlier, Safe House is still providing shelter and all of their services. SAPAC is providing all of their services, although they've transitioned to some virtual. And we've actually, I think going a couple questions back, or maybe it was Marlanna's comment, we have had students on campus that were, needed to go home, but didn't feel that that was a safe place for them. And so they reached out either through SAPAC or CAPS or some other resource, and then we're connected with our department and other resources on campus to find housing for them. So yes, we are still here. And one of the things I like to tell survivors when we're talking to them is that the University of Michigan is here to assist in any and every way that we can. We can't always do everything people want, but there are a lot of things we can do. So if there's a concern someone has, for instance, the going home, the housing, where their office is located because of an incident that is going on with them, don't be afraid to ask. And we will work with our colleagues in human resources, in CAPS and SAPAC, in General Counsel's office. We will work with the university to try and find solutions for people, because we not only want them to be safe, but we want them to feel safe, because it's really hard to focus on learning or focus on your job when you're concerned about your safety.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good information. Any other questions? I don't think I saw anything coming in. So thank you all for participating, for giving us all these valuable pieces of information. We will leave this contact information up on our communications as well, with the presentation on the YouTube channel. And we'll be seeing you next, maybe for further workshops and whatnot. But thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks again for having us, Claudia. And thank you
You're
for
welcome.
everyone for taking out time to listen today and to the future recording. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you to everyone who joined as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you again. Everyone have a nice day.
Bye.